Drogba, Eto'o, Okocha, Salah, Mané, Osimhen. Today, these guys are Africa's legends. But once upon a time, African players weren't even allowed on the pitch. They weren't even allowed to hold the same balls as their colonizers. Football in Africa didn't start with film. It started with fire. It was a protest disguised as play, a ball kicked in defiance, a game that became a movement. From colonial bans to World Cup glory, from barefoot village matches to billion-dollar stadiums, this is not just a history of goals and games. It's the story of how a continent turned oppression into obsession and built a legacy that now rules the world's biggest stadiums. You think you know football? Wait till you see how Africa changed the game forever. By the early 1900s, as Britain, France, and Portugal divided up the continent, this strange new game spread, a game played with round leather ball. In Egypt, football began taking shape around 1882 during the British occupation. By 1907, Egyptian students formed Al-Ahly SC, a club that would become a symbol of resistance, one of the first to be owned and run by locals instead of colonizers. Across the continent, in places like Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone, mission schools used it to teach teamwork and discipline, but the students, the young Africans, saw something more in it. By the 1910s and 1920s, football was spreading fast. Across Africa, local clubs began to rise. Accra Hearts of Oak in Ghana, Al-Merrikh FC in Sudan, Orlando Pirates in South Africa, and stationary stores in Nigeria, and many others. At first, these clubs were small, just students and workers playing barefoot on dusty fields, but the passion grew fast as independence movements swept across Africa. In the 1940s and 1950s, football became part of the identity struggle. When Ghana gained independence in 1957 under Kwame Nkrumah, one of his first national projects was to develop football as a unifying force. That same year, in Khartoum, Sudan, CAF, the Confederation of African Football, was formed, with Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and South Africa as the founding members. That same year, the first African Cup of Nations took place, but South Africa was banned because of its apartheid rule. Egypt won that tournament, and a new era of football began. CAF started small but grew quickly. Newly independent nations like Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Congo, and Tanzania joined one after the other. And in 1963 and 1965, Ghana won back-to-back titles, calling themselves the Black Stars of Africa, and that became part of their identity. As decades passed, AFCON became a map of African history. But even then, equality was far away. By that time, FIFA didn't take Africa seriously. Only one African team, one, was allowed to compete for the World Cup qualification. In 1934, Egypt became the first African team to play at the World Cup. In Italy, Egypt faced a formidable Hungarian side. Yet after that, FIFA turned away. For the next 36 years, Africa was ignored, forced to fight for a voice in the game it loved. In 1966, when FIFA refused to give Africa even a single guaranteed slot, the entire continent boycotted the World Cup qualifier. That protest changed everything. By 1970, FIFA finally guaranteed Africa one full spot, a symbolic but hard-earned victory that opened the door for generations to come. By the 1980s, African football was done proving it could play. Now it wanted respect. When Cameroon arrived in Italy for the 1990 World Cup, they were unknown to most of the football worlds, and their coach, Valeri Nepomniachtchi, was a Soviet outsider who barely spoke the team's language. Few expected anything from them. Their first match was against Argentina, the defending champions, led by Diego Maradona, but Cameroon shook the world. You see, Francois Oumambiek scored a powerful header in the 67th minute, despite two red cards. Yes, two red cards. Cameroon held on to a 1-0 win. It was one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history, and at the moment, African football demanded global respect. That win changed everything. Suddenly, Cameroon wasn't just a team, they were a threat. And then came Roger Milla at 38 years old. He had already retired, but at the request of the Cameroon's president, he returned not just as a starter, but as a secret weapon off the bench. In the knockout rounds, Milla came alive. He scored twice against Colombia in extra time, dancing at the corner flag after each goal, a celebration that became iconic. And when Cameroon reached the quarterfinals, the first African team to ever do so, no one was laughing anymore. For once, the world wasn't just watching Africa, they were amazed. At the 1994 World Cup in the United States, Nigeria made its first appearance and was placed in Group D alongside Argentina, Bulgaria, and Greece, all season teams. But the Super Eagles didn't flinch. First match, Nigeria stunned Bulgaria with a 3-0 win in Dallas. Goals from Rashidi Yekini, Daniel Amokachi, and Emmanuel Amunike showed their attacking firepower. Yekini celebrated, clutching the nets and screaming. This became iconic. In their second match, they faced Argentina, led by the mighty Diego Maradona and Gabriel Batistuta. Nigeria lost 2-1, but held their own, with Samson Siasia scoring early and pushing Argentina to a response. Their third match, Nigeria beat Greece with a 2-0 victory. They topped the group, a first for an African team. In the round of 16, Nigeria faced Italy. Emmanuel Amunike scored in the 25th minute, and Nigeria led until the 88th minute, when Roberto Baggio equalized, and in the extra time, Baggio scored again. Nigeria lost that game 2-1, but the world has seen enough. They weren't just talented, they were organized, confident, and united. Led by the Dutch coach Clemens Waterhoff, Nigerian squad blended youth and experience: JJ Okocha, Sunday Ulisi, Stephen Keshi, and Peter Rufai. Nigeria's 1996 Olympic Dream Team shocked the world. They won the Africa's first ever Olympic gold. After surviving a tough group with Brazil, Japan, and Hungary, they came back from a 3-1 loss to beat Brazil with Kanu's golden goal. And in the final against Argentina, Nigeria came from behind again, with Amunike scoring the winner to make it a 3-2 win, earning the name the Comeback King. While others were winning on the field, in South Africa, they were fighting a different kind of battle. For decades, football in South Africa was split by race, white-only leagues at the top, while black players were banned from competing. Then, apartheid ended, the country was free, and in 1966, South Africa hosted the Africa's Cup of Nations, their first major international tournament as one united nation. Nobody expected much. They had only been readmitted into FIFA 3 years earlier, but led by Cleary Barker and captained by Neil Tove, the team carried a nation's score. In the group stage, they shocked everyone, beating Cameroon 3-0 in their opener and Ghana 3-0 in the semis. In the finals, at the Park Soccer City Stadium in Johannesburg, with Nelson Mandela in the stands wearing a Bafana jersey, South Africa faced Tunisia. McWilliams scored twice in the second half. Final whistle, 2-0. South Africa were champions of Africa. The noise, the flags, the tears, it was sound of the country finally standing as one. By the early 2000s, the game has changed. Africa was no longer on the sidelines. It was shaping football mainstream. Europe's biggest clubs began to feel the African heartbeats, and from West to Central Africa, new kings rose. Didier Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, Michael Essien, Yaya Toure, John Mikel Obi. These weren't just African stars. They were football royalty. Every game they played was a statement. We belong here. If you've been enjoying the journey so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because there's so much more coming. More of Africa's football legacy and glory. Thank you. In 2004, South Africa won the right to host the 2010 FIFA World Cup, the first ever held on the African soil. They had lost the 2006 bid to Germany just by 1 vote, but they refused to give up. With the support of Nelson Mandela and the African Union, South Africa convinced FIFA that the continent deserved its moment. Over the next 6 years, the country transformed. 5 new stadiums were built: Soccer City, Moses Mabhida, Peter Mokaba, Nelson Mandela Bay, and the Mbombela. By Cape Town and Loftus Versfeld were upgraded. Africa sent 6 teams, the most in history: South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, and Algeria. South Africa fought hard but became the first host nation ever to not advance past the group stage, finishing with a win against France. Nigeria, in a tough group, failed to progress despite strong performances from players like Vincent Enima and Yakubu Aigbeni. Cameroon, led by Samuel Eto'o, exited early, losing all 3 matches. Algeria held England to a famous 0-0 draw but couldn't find goals to move on. Ivory Coast, captained by Didier Drogba, battled in a group of death with Brazil and Portugal, finishing third despite solid performances. Then came Ghana, Africa's shining light. They were the only African team left, and they managed to beat Syria and USA to reach the quarterfinals, becoming the 3rd team to ever do so. The historic run ended in heartbreak against Uruguay, denied the semi-final spot by Luis Suarez handball, and a missed 128-minute penalty by Asamoah Gyan. The match ended 1-1 after extra time. It went to penalties. In the shootout, Gyan scored his penalty, but John Mensah and Hadija missed. Uruguay advanced 4-2. Suarez, bound for the semi-final, celebrated wildly from the tunnel. Ghana's dream ended inches from history, not by defeat, but by heartbreak. And all that, the world finally saw it. Then came the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Africa delivered its strongest collective performance in history. For the first time ever, all 5 African representatives, Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, Ghana, and Cameroon, won at least one group stage match. It was a complete turnaround from 2018 when no African team reached the knockout stage. Morocco, however, stood above them all. Morocco topped Group F with 7 points, beating Belgium 2-0, drawing Croatia 0-0, and defeating Canada 2-1, conceding only 1 goal and own goal. In the round of 16, they shut down Spain's 1,000 passes and won on penalties, with Hakimi finishing it with a cold Panenka. In the quarterfinals, Eniseris Eder made it 1-0 against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal, and Morocco held on to become the first Arab and African team to reach a World Cup semi-final. So you see, African football isn't just growing on the pitch, it's reshaping communities across the continent. Big stars like Sadio Mané has invested over $1 million in Bambali, building schools, hospitals, and solar power for his entire village. Mohamed Salah fund water plants, schools, and medical projects across the Nile Delta and donating millions to rebuild and support his hometown. Victor Osimhen, once a street vendor in Lagos, now channels his success into youth academies and training centers after leading Napoli to their first title in 33 years. Even back home, the fire burns just as bright. Al Ahly and Wydad turned African finals into global spectacles. Sundowns in South Africa played football that looked like heart. Enyimba FC in Nigeria carried the legacy of the old guard. Foundation and academies from legends like Didier Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, and Weah continue expanding opportunities for young African players. Even celebrations carry meaning. Salah's sky point is gratitude. Mane's kneel is humility. Osimhen's mask off is defiance and identity. African football is no longer searching for recognition. It's influencing global culture and driving the sport forward. The question isn't whether Africa will rise again. It is who can stop it.